Hi, everyone. Today is Saturday, December 28th, 2024. Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Morgan, and this talk is a talk I host twice a week to discuss experiences on the path of soul transcendence. This offering is brought to you by the movement of spiritual inner awareness with the encouragement and support of my friend John Morton, who holds the mystical traveler consciousness, which is the spiritual consciousness that we're working with today. If you're new to the call, the format is simple. We'll start by calling ourselves forward into the light, which is calling our awareness forward into the light of God that's already present. Then we're going to chant 3 and 9 hues. Hue is an ancient name for God, and an eye invokes a quality of empathy and compassion. Then I'm going to play a video clip from my teacher, John Roger. And then I'm going to do a reading from a saint of India called Tulsi Sahib, who is actually the guru of the founder of the Radhaswami faith, which has some relation to what we do, but it's a beautiful poem. And then we can talk about whatever you would like. So, well, go ahead.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Lord God of all creation, we come before you this morning, and we ask just now that we all be filled, surrounded, protected, and inspired to step forward into higher and higher levels of our soul awareness and our abilities to bring forth loving. And Lord, we are just so grateful. So be it.
Who makes up this tone that I chant? I mean, how come I don't chant banana splits or something?
Well, that's a really good question. Everything on this planet
Who makes up this tone that I chant? I mean, how come I don't chant banana splits or something?
Well, that's a really good question. Everything on this planet is made up. Everything. Your name is fictitious. But when we call you, you go, what? And my dog's names are fictitious. But when I call them, they come. They also, when I call one, not all of them come, because they all know that one. Like if I say, player, the others turn around and look at him so he can go. I have energized through the name to them. Now I could have given them any name as long as I energized it by calling it to them and rewarding them and letting them know it was them. Now, these names of God have set within them harmonic frequencies. If the name is not charged, not set into vibration, it doesn't matter what the name is, it isn't going to do it for you. Now, you could sit and chant the word one, 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 and that'll produce an altered state. It will not produce a spiritualized state. the name of God allows that to take place, because as you chant that name, you're calling that God, who then turns around and reaches into its own name vibration and pulls you up. And people feel the pulling inside their body as they're being pulled from it. But even at that, if you don't have somebody who can connect it in this blank space between you and God, if there's nobody that can connect that and stand as a spiritual intermediary there and conduct the energy down and you up, you're not going to go anywhere. The traveler, as an embodiment, travels with you. The traveler is the God in that realm, is already there, and you must learn to love the traveler in all the realms in order to get through them. But as you do, you learn to love yourself, because you're also got the traveler with you and is you. But you don't have the keys of knowledge to know what that is. But you're getting them as you go up. That's why you have to claim it. Take authority in your life over it, live on the experience, and it'll step you up.
Thank you, and I love you very much.
All right. This is the reading from Tulsi Sahib. I think if we substitute the word saint for mystical traveler, we might be pretty close. Anyway, here's the poem. Within this body breathes the secret essence. Within this body beats the heart of the Vedas. Within this body shines the entire universe, so the saints say. Hermits, ascetics, celibates, all are lost seeking him in endless guises. Seers and sages perfectly parrot the scriptures and holy books, blinded by knowledge, their pilgrimage and fasting and striving, but delude. Despite their perfect practice, they discover no destination. Only the saints who know the body's heart have attained the ultimate, O Tulsi. Realize this, and you found your freedom, while teachers trapped in tradition know only the mirage in the mirror. All right. First off, before we get started, is there anybody new to the talks or new to MSI that would like to share today? I'm happy to push you to the front of the line. Otherwise, we could jump in. Okay. All right, we'll go with Judea.
Hi, Jeffrey. Well, I had
Hello.
a very good morning, and I'm glad you had a Merry Christmas because I know you did. Um, I had a karmic Christmas. I was carrying food to the chickens and tripped on the step and fell. And my sister was petting the dog, and it whipped around and bit her wrist. And Kaylin, whom I like to ask a question about, the 10-year-old daughter of my niece, had a meltdown. So it was a very wild Christmas. So Kaylin is 10 going on 18, and I'm not sure if she's ADHD or she's just angry. And I tried speaking with her, and she put her phone down because she gave me 3 minutes on the phone, so she set the timer. I tried to talk to her because I'm auntie, and when I was finished, she said, "Okay, you leave, goodbye. I've got to talk on my phone to my friends." I said, "But I'm not here very often." She said, "Well, bye." And so I don't know how to be with her. I guess I'm not used to people or children being so. She knows what she wants, and she reminds me of myself when I was a child, because I was stubborn and I wanted what I wanted, and if I didn't get it, but I didn't scream at my mom like she does. And I one time she was screaming at somebody, and I said, "Stop screaming." She said, "I'm not screaming at you." So I mean, she's a very interesting person, and if you have any clue as to how I can be with her, I would really appreciate it. You're closer to her age than I am.
Yeah, I think you were onto something when you were saying she reminds me of you when you were her age.
But she's
Because
adopted.
that, yeah, no, that part's not relevant. But we attract to ourselves karmically the people who will represent the parts of ourselves that we are to work. So if you're working the part of yourself, if you think about it like you're not really interacting with her, you're interacting with yourself at that age. And so the sooner you start to heal and start to work and start to free the part of you that is her, the easier it's going to be. See, most of the time, and especially this goes, what I've noticed is for younger kids and like people my age who are younger and things of that nature, a lot of our time is spent being projected upon by people who are older and think they understand. Just like when you were young, a lot of your time was spent feeling projected upon by people who are older and think they understand. And there's a lot of, stereotypical movies I can only imagine. So if I'm watching Alice's Restaurant or something like that, and I can see in that movie that the boomers must have felt the very same way I felt, which is they don't get where I'm coming from. They think they do, and that just gets in the way. So my my approach is with and I don't think it matters in terms of generation because I end up being really close to people of all ages, clearly, right? So I look at it as you may have a hang up about what that means, the fact that you're older, younger, whatever that means. You may have a hang up about who you think she is and how she works. But when we bring in what JR calls like what in he's got a seminar, what is the agenda of listening? That's very good about this.
What's the name?
What is the agenda of listening, I believe? What is
Okay.
the agenda of listening? Um, And if we can come in without any preconceived notions, which I mean, do the forgiveness, do the inner work so that that person is completely free, that person is completely open inside, they're going to want to be around you just because you've got a safe place where you're actually listening. Now, most of the time, I mean, I, I think my personal favorite is listening to somebody who's older than me lecture me about what millennials are like or something like that, or my generation, and explain to me how, when they were my age, they had to walk 15 miles in the snow just to get to their work or something. And then I look at the economics data and I go, well, that's just hilarious that you think that. Because from where I'm sitting, you could basically cough in a direction and make money. Whereas I had to, struggle. So we can all get into the stories of what that means. But at a fundamental level, the story goes away and we just simply love the person. And at the end of the day, the greatest ministry often is just to be able to listen and give that person a space to be. And it's like there's um, there's a quote from Lao Tzu about leadership, which talks about, you know, going to the level of the people and loving what they love and being in their world. I remember when I was a kid, I would see certain parents working with their children, and it was as if they were managing them, if you
Hmm.
know what I mean. Like it was as if they were placing them over there. You probably felt quite managed when you were a kid or something like that. That used to be kind of more the norm, but there
I
was a
didn't
sense of,
scream though. I didn't. I can't even get to her to listen to her because all she does is scream and run to her room and be on the phone. So there's no listening involved. I have done, and I'm wondering if she's autistic or there's some anger thing because she's just really angry.
well, so, but you're only going to see yourself. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, I'm
So you
hearing
got to work with the you that that's really angry and autistic and goes on her phone all the time.
that. But at
It's
least I
there.
kind of.
No, no, but you only see the stuff that you have stuff to work with on. You only have karma with yourself. So you could ask yourself, oh, do I have karma with that person? Well, the punchline is you only have karma with yourself. So you get to work that process and heal her inside of you. And you may see transformation happen. See, you're looking at it going, I'd like to be able to listen to you. Well, listening starts inside. It's just like seeing begins in the dark in a sense.
Yeah.
We're always starting with our eyes closed and then we open them. You're always starting with the loudness and the ups and the downs and the tumultuous environment of the inner world. And then the peace comes in, and the peace reverberates into the exterior reference point and the reflection of that. But it's not the source, it's not what's really going on. Just like peace begins with me, we know that that's true. But what does that also mean? That means all problems are found within me. I only perceive problems that I have in there, and I only heal problems that are in there, and I only find peace in there.
Yeah, I
So,
guess it kind of shook me in a way that we haven't had this type of relationship before. Although she calls me the edgy sister, and my sister is the gentle sister.
I could see that.
Yeah, so I asked her, I said, well, what's edgy about me? I wanted to hear what she had to say. And she says,
Mhm.
well, my mother says that you don't have children, so you don't know how to be with children. Although I did teach school for 40 years, but that doesn't count. So I just was kind of shook by it all. And I know about the forgiveness. I
But
know
but
those things.
but it's
Yeah,
good being shook. It's good being shook. How else were you going to find that inside of you to
yeah,
heal?
yes.
So I think start the conversation with thank you for bringing this to my attention. I didn't know I had this part of me to heal. You see the difference in consciousness?
Say that again, because I don't know if I was listening.
That was very honest. I love that about you. You really are the edgy sister. Um, I was gonna so I was saying we can start the conversation with thank you for bringing this to my attention. I never would have thought to look for this part of me to heal.
I did
You see
tell
what
her
I'm saying?
she reminds me of myself when I was young. I did
Yeah,
tell
well,
her that
they
doesn't,
don't
yeah,
like that. Yeah,
no,
you don't say that. Nobody likes hearing that.
don't talk to me about you. Just, pay attention to me. Okay. And I hear what you're saying. And I did when I came home, this is 4 days ago. So when I came home, I was working all the things that I'd known because I told her father that I'd been working on myself for 40 years, trying to get empathy and loving and, that edgy, angry
And
part
and
of
and
me
and how did trying work for you?
trying. Yeah, I'll try and pick up the pencil. Well, yeah, yes, I hear what you're
I
saying.
think yeah, no, and the part's obviously still in there. That's the thing. You think a conversation has to be that way, but my experience is behavior is the way that we communicate what's unspeakable. Do you understand?
Yes,
So you are having a conversation with her. You just don't like the tone of voice she's using right
true.
now.
Very true.
That which is again a you problem, not a her problem.
Right. I get
So
it. It just kind of came into um, being because at Thanksgiving she was different, and now that she has the phone, she can be
and
to
she
herself.
and,
Yeah,
and
now
she might have picked up some stuff. She might have like there's a lot of like it's not easy. You want to
no,
talk about
this world
I
is very
mean,
different.
Exactly. And I was raised around technology, but not at the level that like my son is raised around technology. And I just hope by the time he's 12, 13, they've like outlawed social media or something, because it just seems to do more harm than
Crazy.
good right now.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of compassion, but you have those parts of you that want approval from other folks or think that is just looking for the next endorphin burst. I mean, maybe you were going out and partying, doing drugs, but her drug is approval.
Right.
That's a tough one. A lot of people have that going.
Yeah, and I was born in the 40s, which was like, you know, covered wagon days compared to what we are now. So uh, it was a different time. And I know I just have to step up to the time and step up to the loving and the
I mean,
inside
I just love that you're still here doing the messiness of human beingness. I love it.
too.
I mean, you're born in the 40s and you're still as youthful as I've ever been. And I love that you can have messy arguments with teenagers. It's wonderful. Thank God.
I was born in 1941, and so my birthday is January 14th, and I'll be 84, which is the wheel of 84, which John brought up to me, and I thought that something was going to happen about the wheel when I was 84, but there's nothing to do with it, does it? I know, oh, good. I'm 84. I can get off the wheel.
You know, I immediately thought of 1984, but that's a little bit
That's a different.
more
That's a
dystopian.
different.
Word association, what can you do? How you doing in there? You think you know what you want to do?
Yeah, yeah. That's some more forgiveness and some more
And
loving self.
sense of humor. It's like after all these years, you get to find new stuff to work on. Thank God. And sometimes you work on yourself so much, you need to attract a super unreasonable person into your midst just to get around your really well thought out and curated personal growth techniques.
Well, since you always talked about karma, I have this soap here, and it's called um, Scented with Ha Ha Ha, and it's Karma soap. So I have it by
That's
me, and I look
perfect.
at it and go, Karma. Hmm.
That is fabulous. I love that.
And I love you, and I've known
Love
you
you
since
too,
baby.
Chide.
So you're a
Yeah.
one incredible boy, man.
Thank you, Chide. Thank you. Thank you. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful rest of your weekend.
I will.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Um, I have a feeling, Gabrielle, have I shared with you before? As you No. Okay, we'll have you go first.
Thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be here with you all. I'm very thankful to my friend Nidia, one of my ministers here in South Florida, who invited me today. Let me lower my hand. Um, this is such a surprise to me. Like I didn't follow that you were doing this, and I'm very excited to be participating for the first time. I'm also a minister here in Florida, in South Florida, and I just had a
Mhm.
baby 3 months ago. My
Congratulations.
very first. Thank you so much. His I am very active with Insight seminars since 2015, and he's almost like an Insight baby because he was manifested in Insight 2 last year when I was repeating Insight 2. I did it in 2016. I repeated it last year, and I pretty much didn't know what to work on this Insight 2 that I was repeating, and I was like, you know what, this is something that I want to work on, like my 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 wanting to be a mother, because that was something that wasn't present before. I'm like you, a millennial, but I'm very much like, I consider myself an old soul. And I try to stay away from noise, and we have access to so much information nowadays, But
Mhm.
I was talking to Nidia yesterday, and that's why she recommended me so highly to participate today. And I was telling her that I am in an alarm state right now. Like, I don't want people to be touching the baby because, all the germs and all the infections that are happening, and like, and that's not me. I'm very natural. I'm very spontaneous. I go with the flow consistently. I'm very confident in karma and life, and I understand life. Like, I'm not usually like this. So because of the information, of course, like even the vaccination process, I've been reading a lot, but I don't like going with social media. Like, I buy books, I read the books, I get different points of view, and then I try to make, informed decisions. So I've been so in alarm stage lately, and I also started working again, and I am working with my baby from home, which is a blessing because my work is not a work from home work, but my management allowed me to work from home because I just have my baby and I have nobody to take care of him. So, I know I'm blessed beyond measure. My baby is amazing. He's very healthy. But I am finding a lot of stress around the fact of I don't want anything bad to happen to him.
Mhm.
And I know that, like babies don't belong to parents. I know that. We're here to take care of them, to guide them through their path.
Mhm.
But we're not
Mhm.
here to just, put them in a bubble, like Nidia was telling me. Like, you have to really like set your mind free of all the pain that you think may happen, or fear
Mhm.
that you are experiencing. So I don't know, like I just want some enlightening here. And you're a parent, I just heard. So I think that maybe you can give me a little bit of your light, share your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, firstly, maybe as a parent, you are there to put your baby in a bubble. That might be the karma they chose. I have a different approach. Like, I think that all these books that people write and all that stuff, that's really useful to share information and to expose us to different ideas that we might not have right out the gate. But at the same time, I have so much faith in the inherent intelligence of the karma the baby comes in with and the conversation that you have when you have less static in the channel and you can like listen to the soul of the baby. I would often say that I'm accountable to the baby's soul, not to their personality. So there may be things that I choose and do that that my child, my son doesn't particularly like. He doesn't like when I have a specific point of view on something, but I'm very intuition driven and very much listening inwardly to what is the soul asking me to do. And so it might be that, he wants the toy, but the soul goes, no, 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 he's really object focused. We're going to need to shift this to people focus. So you tell him, no more objects. We're doing only experiences now. But the soul might come in with a lot of trauma from a past life around not being wanted. So it's very important that you spoil the crap out of them. It just depends. It all depends. I think that people, I maybe I just don't have a good karma with getting advice, but I've never found any advice to be useful other than the advice to listen to the soul, listen solically. Now, the caveat with that is a lot of people think they're listening to God and they're really just listening to their own ego. And that's
Wow, yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. But it's different. It's like there has to be a degree of discernment. You start to look at the qualities of the soul and that knowing and that spiritual light that comes forward. It becomes less about a sensation and it becomes more about this calm, this peaceful, loving knowing that comes forward. This is what I'm to do. And it may be totally on course for you to be totally flipped out and crazy and hyper protective of your baby because maybe your baby's hypersensitive and maybe that's really important. And maybe, it just depends. It depends on the specific case. It would be great if there was an instruction manual that could tell you this is how you're going to do
I
it.
know. I
And
know.
it's really funny. A lot of parents are worried about screwing up their baby, screwing up their kid, but it's usually the parents that are worried about screwing up their kid that don't screw up their kid. They're kind of or if they do, it's usually kind of funny. But you know, they it's the parents who kind of don't notice or who are so self-interested. But even that, we try to think that we're in so much control, but largely the curriculum is chosen by the child. So it's not as if we can have this kind of absolute control over the upbringing of the child. I never wanted my son to experience bullying. And this past year, he experienced some bullying. Now, I could get really dramatic about that, or I could go, well, I guess he chose bullying to complete some bullying karma. And then I just help him clear it, help him release it, and then we move on. And the reality is, there are bullies in the world. So it's almost like better he experience it now and understand that there are bullies in the world when I'm there to help him clear it than for him to go out into the world thinking there's no bullies in the world, believe the first person he meets, and then get bullied. So you kind of look at it and go, this whole thing is orchestrated. And the child is going to have a very individual and specific karma that may be different than yours. It's like when people freak out about money, that like I was really worried ours was an unexpected pregnancy, and I was, a new attorney, and very, very poor because there were not a lot of good attorney jobs at the time. And it was, we were in a one-bedroom apartment when we found out that she was pregnant. I mean, we had that like nothing, and we were barely making rent, and what are we going to do? But then before we knew it, it was like we go through this whole rigmarole only to discover that there was a house waiting for us that we almost, to rent way below the market for renting a house with more than enough space for my in-laws to stay there, which, was also something clearly he preferred to have them close, and we had this whole setup where it's like all of a sudden we have childcare because my in-laws are there. uh, it was walking distance from a new job I just got. I mean, it's like all these things fell into place because it needed to be set up for the way he needed it to be, not the way I thought it should be, not the way. And people always talk about being ready, like, oh, I'm going to be ready. Oh, I'm going to be. No, you're not. You're going to go wherever the kid's karma needs you to go because that's the way that it works. But the good news is there's a saying that like every child is born with a loaf of bread under each arm. There is a kind of an abundance that can come forward where the kid will come in and all of a sudden you're making more money, or all of a sudden you have the support you need, or all of a sudden there's an angel that appears that supports you the way you need to be supported. And I find that happens so, so often with so many parents that I know. And I look at it and I think that the thing that isn't necessary in your consciousness is this anxiety and struggle that goes on. But a lot of that is there's a part of you that is still addicted to an illusion of control and thinking that you know what's going on versus just saying, Lord, what would you have me do, and following the breadcrumbs. So there's going to be clues everywhere all the time. I learned a ton about attunement and intuition having a kid because there would always be breadcrumbs everywhere. I mean, I found we got a first pediatrician right after he was born that was handed to us that had a very specific way of taking care of kids, and this is how you do it. And then we couldn't find anyone we liked. And then all of a sudden, I start reading random articles and go to the authors. And it's just like a series of random events. And I come upon the crappiest website with the worst SEO you've ever seen. And it's the website of his doctor. And it's who he's been with ever since, and who has watched him grow and taken care of him. And, we can text him at any time. And it's like, we think that we're in control. I mean, I look back and even the birth was very specific. He was like, I'm going to be born 1:15 p.m. It was like, he wasn't going to negotiate on that. And in fact, we were in line because it had to be a C-section. We were in line for behind, I think, one or two other people. And then all of a sudden there were these contractions, and this poor woman was wheeled out of the room and we were put in. We cut to the front of the line because he had to be born at 1:15 p.m. It was just, it was ridiculous. It's always been that way, and it always works that way if we choose to cooperate with the flow of energy. You will be guided to the knowledge that you need. The anxiety says, oh my God, I have to look, I have to look, I have to look. But that actually kind of gets in the way. It's more like, um, see, it's funny, I know nothing about like divining, like looking for water. But I'm like, I see Ron right next to my face, and I'm like, I bet he knows something about that. Anyway, but you got to feel it. If you're talking the whole time, if you're yelling while you're trying to feel for water, you're not going to notice anything. If you're trying to do a dance, what you got to just, it's just about feeling the flow. And a lot of people think that life is about the planning, and there is planning involved for sure, especially when it comes to finances. There is approaches and systems that work, but it's less about trying to make things happen, but to allow your soul to guide you to the optimal method, the optimal system, the optimal approach that will take you forward. So it's kind of funny because it's like I've had arguments with my wife about, like, there was an argument we had about buying an earthquake kit because she was convinced we were going to have the big one in LA, which, by the way, we're always going to have the big one in LA, whether it happens or not. It's coming. We don't know when, but at some point, at some point in the next million years, there will be an earthquake. So she was like, buy an earthquake kit. And I was like, it's just not testing. I'm not getting the hit to buy an earthquake kit. And it's just like, it wasn't testing. It wasn't. And we kept arguing. She's like, it's not about testing. There's earthquake coming. What the hell is wrong with you? Just go buy an earthquake kit. And then on the way home, I had this weird feeling. So I take a left and I'm going a different direction. And then I'm going this other place. And all of a sudden, I'm in front of this thrift shop. And I'm like, oh, this looks like a fun place. I bet they have a odd collection of knives and hats I could look at. And so I go inside, and lo and behold, right staring right at me is this amazing earthquake kit, half off and perfectly stocked with everything I need. And I said, I think that's my earthquake kit. And I grabbed it and I paid for it. And then I went home and put it away. Now, you would say, well, you are planning for an earthquake. This is good planning. You got to do good planning. Yeah, but the planning itself can also be intuitively driven. And the information that I attain when I read is always in service to that. Like, I'm always on the lookout for building a vocabulary of my intuitive self. So it's like I read all the books, but it's so that I have more colors to paint with, so that when my intuition paints the picture, I might have a more vivid image to go, I got it. It's a giraffe. It's not a lump of yellow. I know what that is because I have enough colors to paint with. So that's why I might do research or do all that stuff. But the problem is we'll do research, and they actually have this phenomenon when people would study psychology, and people who studied it on the call, they're going to all laugh at this, but like, what is it like? Whatever it is you study, you have. So if you're studying OCD, apparently you have OCD. So like, you'll start, as you study it, the seed will be planted, and you'll think that you have OCD. You'll start to evaluate every little behavior that you have and go, oh wow, maybe I fit the profile of OCD in the DSM-5. I don't know. And it just happens. So you got to be careful as you read that you don't start to program in what you think is going on, and instead it just becomes fuel to the fire of your intuitive beingness and the soul's guidance in your life. So it's a weird way to be, but it's the only way that I know that works. And I don't spend a lot of time worrying about my son. I figure to a large extent that's God's job because it's God's son. And you said that in the very beginning, right? You said you get that. Now, there's getting that, right? And then there's integrating that into your body. And if you have traumatic memories and body processes, if you even had a difficult birth, you're going to start to relive and process all of that as you see the child aging, and it's going to kick stuff up for you to clear. The mind is then going to misidentify that and say, oh my God, there must be something wrong with my baby. No, you might just be clearing your own infant trauma. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, our ability to see what's really going on is often either inhibited or supported by our willingness to not know. If you're willing to just wake up in the morning and go, I don't know, show me God, then it starts to flow. But when you read a book and you go, oh, he's a this and he's a that, and I have this intuition not to do this vaccine, therefore I must be in this theory, and I read that, and therefore am I one of those people? No, you just got to listen. It may be that his body's super hypersensitive and has an immunodeficiency, and you got to wait, and then it's going to test later. Or it might be that it's never going to test, or it might be you just got to listen. So
I love it.
it's everybody is going to have an opinion, and we all know that opinions are like noses. Everyone has one and they all smell. So I would go inward. Everything's going to tell you to go outward. I would go inward and ask there and trust that. But part of that going inward, the responsibility is doing the clearing, doing the free form writing, doing the forgiveness. Get clear of the static in the channel so you can hear the voice of your child's soul telling you the next step.
Wow. I think this is the part that was missing because everything you're saying really syncs very well with what I am and how I think. Because before having my baby, I have always been like going with the flow. Like I'm very free spirited. Like I am very intuitive, but I am in a way blocking my intuition recently
Hmm?
because of all the things that I am getting informed about, So what
Correct.
you're telling me,
Yes.
I need to pretty much connect my soul wisdom with my son's soul and I wisdom.
Yes.
And that is I think the part that was missing and that is
And and
beautiful.
and and understand that the ego contextualizes. People who are intuitive will often say, I can be intuitive at an MSIA seminar or an insight seminar, but I can't be intuitive at my job, or I can't be
Yeah.
intuitive with these people. So your consciousness created a context called I can be intuitive everywhere else, but as a mother, I need to follow the books. I need to follow the structure. I need to follow the what. I use the same, and maybe this is just I'm more simplistic. I tend to use the same approach everywhere I go. There was a wonderful, people overuse the term mindfulness. Uh, it's become very trendy, but it came from a really wonderful book called Mindfulness. And a lot of that book was about eliminating context to create that sense of harmony, that sense of peace. A lot of the time we say, this is who I am at work, this is who I am on vacation. And to me, what works best is to be the same person everywhere. And what works best for me, because I'm very sensitive and intuitive, is to use that everywhere, especially with parenting. So
This is the advice that
there
I
you go.
needed. Thank you so much. I am beyond grateful and I'm very thankful with you and with Nidia for having me here and for everybody for holding the light for us because I know that that's what we do as ministers when we are in these sessions and we listen to everybody. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's great to know you.
Likewise,
Hope to see you again soon.
you will. Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right. Judith, have you ever shared?
Whoops. No,
Okay, we'll let you go first because I've talked to Linda quite a bit, and I'm sure she won't feel too bent out of shape about that.
thank you so much. So, Jeffrey, my question revolves around something I heard JR say in a seminar about truth. And it really shook me up. What he said was, um, the mind perceives, but the soul thinks. And prior to hearing that, I had reached the point where I was very comfortable in knowing that I'm a soul. I had kind of shifted from my personality and story stuff into, oh my God, I'm a soul. I'm a soul and I'm living life as Judith. And I had that pretty well in place. But I had imagined the soul to be more passive as an observer than active as a thinker. And so it really shook me up. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't speak to what JR meant, and I certainly don't have the context of whatever was said.
Right.
But one thing I relate to is I do experience the soul as having a form of intelligence. I look at the mind more from a perspective of processing and organizing information, uh, as a reflection of, or as a process of interaction of the ego. And the ego is that kind of collective, systemic, emergent function of identity as something that participates in the lower levels and psychic material world. That ego and that mind become the vehicle by which the soul experiences. I don't know if I don't perceive the soul as processing in the same way as the mind would. So if you're looking at the definition of thinking as an expression of the mind, which I'm sure if you go to the Oxford English Dictionary, it will associate with the mind.
Mm.
But I would say that the soul does have an intelligence and it does seem to process information and experience and does seem to grow and learn in relation to that. And we can really perceive the level of experience of a soul to some extent. It's not, there's a sense of that a soul is already God in absoluteness, and that's there. But you even heard people use the term like old soul. We can kind of tell when a soul's been around the block a few times, and that isn't always a compliment, at least in my case. So it's not so much to me that the soul will think like a mind, but it will process like a soul. And there's a way in which we can perceive soulically, and there's a way in which we can perceive spiritually. I wouldn't get too wrapped up in the semantics of it. It is very difficult to put words on what I experience. It gets harder the higher in frequency we get. I find it particularly easy to discuss physical occurrences. It gets slightly harder to talk about ideas, slightly harder to talk about emotions, slightly hard to talk about foundational naming and foundational thoughts and naming. That's like metaphysics theory of mind. It gets much, much harder to talk about the unconscious, almost impossible to talk about the void and the mirror. And then once you get into soul and beyond, you're just basically lying, but you're using reflector words that can start to pull people or give people a reference point to what it is that you're experiencing, but you can't really talk about it further. So it's all this to say that the entanglement that you're experiencing, ironically, is an entanglement of the mind.
Right.
So you're asking a question about the soul thinking while you're thinking from the mind.
Right.
For
So,
spiritual things, I would process through experiential reality, and then you will simply know what it was he meant. It's more important that you know the source of what he said rather than the words that he said. Because my experience of John Roger is he would speak from a consciousness, and the consciousness that he spoke from is the most important part of what was going on there. not the words that he used, but those words carried the frequency of where he was speaking from.
Mhm.
And it allowed us to trace that line, to travel on that river back to the source. And all of a sudden, we were with him walking the high country.
So let me just check something out here. Would it, and again, realizing that words are coming from the mind and etc., would it make more sense to say something to the effect that the soul is processing karma by learning through experience?
Karma is processing itself, and the soul is gaining experience from that process. The soul is not subject to cause and effect. The soul is witnessing cause and effect. The soul is responsible for processes of cause and effect through karmic law, but it is not itself caused or effect.
Right.
It is the one that sees but cannot be seen, the one that hears but cannot be heard, the one it's talked about in the Upanishads. So it's not that it is, um, it's more like it's in a dream, like when you dream and you think it's really real and you get knocked down and you get up and you get real upset about that in the dream. Did anything really happen to you? Well, maybe somewhere, but
Mm.
generally, no, not physically. But then you wake up and go, oh, I guess that was a dream. The experience of the soul is that there's an asleepness where we're dreaming the cause and effect of the lower experience. And we can do that for many, many hundreds of lifetimes, both on the physical and on other levels, until the awakener, the mystical traveler consciousness, starts to activate in us the remembrance. Oh, yeah, I'm not in this whole thing is a dream, and I can wake up, and there is something other than this.
So
So,
JR's use of that word thinking threw me off. But I hear what you're
yeah,
saying in that the soul is bearing witness to us doing this stuff that we're doing, and it's learning and awakening.
yeah,
That's what the soul is doing, is like, because that word thinking, it was like, oh well, then who's the one who's taking
but
action?
not,
Crazy in my
but
mind.
it's not, it's not learning so that it can awaken. It's learning so that it can have experience. And the awakening is a process given by the grace of God.
Can you explain what you just said? Learning, it's learning to say that again?
So, learning in the sense that, like, if gaining experience was the criteria, we would already be off the planet by now. A lot of us have been gaining quite a bit of experience over a lot of lifetimes. You
Yeah.
don't earn your way into God consciousness. You are given by the grace of God, God consciousness. It's like it's described in the Bhagavad Gita when Krishna says, you, Arjuna, you cannot see me in my soulic form. You cannot see me as I truly am unless I give you the eyes to see me. The mystical traveler consciousness, through the action of the Christ, gives us the eyes to see the true manifestation of God through the sound current. And then through that process of taking darshan with an authentic manifestation of God, we simply choose and will our way out of the cycle of transmigration. If you listen to on joyful, is I think it's on Joyful Meditations, the Golden Temple meditation, maybe someone can post a link. And if you can somehow stay awake long enough to hear the end, you don't climb to the Golden Temple. You see the Golden Temple and you will yourself there. And then the doors open outward. Now, open outward means you have to receive of it. It's not something, it's not a you do it or make it happen. The higher, the, not higher space here temporally, but the higher frequency and the more rarefied experiences of spirit that are available, the less you do, the more you allow, and you get yourself out of the way, and the spirit is always the doer. So when I qualified what you were saying, it sounded in the context as if you were saying the soul has to gain experience in order to gain awakening. The soul is gaining experience because that's the purpose of the creation pattern. The awakening is an action of grace whereby we reclaim our divine heritage as an inherent right because the price was paid and the bridge was built by Jesus Christ. And
Thank you
that's not,
so much.
I can't, I can't, I can't intellectually prove any of that to you or explain any of that to you, other than if you could follow the frequency of my voice, I was speaking from that.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
And I feel so joyful and so blessed. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Amazing grace. How
Amazing.
sweet the sound. Yes. We won the lottery. I agree.
Yeah, we did.
Um,
Thank you. Bless you.
God bless you. And um, and folks, I'd be remiss also. I'm doing a class as well for MSIA if you like this kind of way out fun stuff with Paul K called Spiritual Alchemist. So if anybody wants to take that, we're going to post a link, but it's just going to be Monday nights and it'll be a lot of fun. So if you feel like doing something like that, Paul does an amazing job of like research and finding amazing quotes and stuff like that. And I do an amazing job of not preparing and just talking like I'm doing right now. So I think between the two of those, we'll we'll have a lot of fun. Anyway, uh, God bless you all. Thank you. The blessings already are.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank
God
you,
bless both
Jeffrey.
people.
Yeah, peace, God.